I don't know if I'm ready yet, but I won't know until I try. It's morphin' time!
Huh? Oh, what the? Oh, I must have done it wrong. I didn't morph into a dinosaur, I morphed into a white guy. Ah well, I've always wondered if it's all it's cracked up to be. Let's find out.
Ooh! Too spicy.
Well, Yankee Doodle Dandy, thanks for the heads up. I would hate for my car's extended warranty to expire. You know, it's actually not that bad.
Well, at least I can do this. MBT. You're a crap.
This video is sponsored by TCG Player. I just love my daily routine. Driving 30 minutes to my P.O. box to see if the pantheisms I ordered in June of 2019 have been delivered yet. Someday. Anyway, if you too have experienced this endless longing of waiting for your cards to actually show up, boy have I got good news for you. Introducing the first important technological advancement of the new millennium, TCG Player Direct. Direct orders arrive in one package, authenticated and condition verified. You even get free shipping on orders $35 or higher. Just make sure you're buying from that little blue logo whenever you shop on TCG Player.
And that you're using my affiliate link.
Direct will be available for all Yu-Gi-Oh cards starting February 24th.
So get ready.
Good afternoon, Jank enthusiasts. I'm MBT, and this is 10-Minute Testing. Frequently, Konami decides that I, personally, deserve to suffer and puts multiple combo decks in Tier 1. As someone who refuses to read, this is a problem. But occasionally, once in a blue moon, they release several archetypes in a row that use trap cards. This is the first of those, presenting Dinomorphia.
Quaker dinosaur eggs is part of this balanced breakfast.
So here's the list, and oh, look at all that beautiful purple. As always, I'll give you a background about the archetype, a little bit of a discussion about what I hope the deck can do, and of course, the card by card. With that, let's dig into Dinomorphia. Now, Dinomorphia is a series of monsters that really pushes the envelope on what you're legally allowed to call a dinosaur. If you thought that anime waifus in bird cosplay was ridiculous back when Bird Up was meta, you ain't seen nothing yet. Dinomorphia Terezi is literally just a woman who appears to be wearing a mechanical tail, and Dinomorphia Diplos is just a guy who has one of Dr. Octopus's tentacles shoved up his ass. But what they lack in flavor, they make up for with utility. Dinomorphia serves their trap cards, binning them, setting them, and recycling them, but it comes at a cost. Your life points. They have access to spell and trap negates, pops, soul charges, and Shaddoll fusions, but each requires a payment of half your life. If you're concerned that that means you'll die to a Fluondere's poke, don't worry, the traps have got you covered. Each one can be banished to prevent either burn or battle damage, depending on if they're a counter trap or a normal trap. The glue that holds this deck together is Dinomorphia Kentragina. This is your target for the Shaddoll fusion, and she's busted. As a quick effect during the main phase, she can copy a trap you've already used, and when she's destroyed, even by the effect of a brute, she floats into a Terezi or a Diplos, who floats into the other one as well, plussing you in the process. This gives a deck with 10 life points after the first turn a surprisingly good grind game. We've paired it with a DPE package for a little more sticking power, and I hear that drawing 2 is good in a deck that burns through trap cards. So with that, let's get into the card by card. First up, our DPE bricks, followed by 3 copies of Dinomorphia Terezi. If this card's normal or special summoned, you get to set a Dinomorphia trap directly from your deck into your spell and trap card zone. Then if your life points are 2,000 or less, it gains 500 attack. After that, we've got Dinomorphia Diplos. If this card is normal or special summoned, you can send a Dinomorphia card from your deck to the graveyard. Then if your life points are 2,000 or less, inflict 500 damage to your opponent. Both of these cards have the same effect. If they are popped by battle or a card effect, they can float into the other one from the grave. We're playing 1 copy of Gilasaurus with 3 Fossil Dig. Gilasaurus is interesting in a deck like this. In a scenario where we have already found a copy of a Dinomorphia and a Fossil Dig, we can use Gilasaurus to go into a Verte turn 1. Speaking of, our target for Verte is 2 copies of Fusion Destiny, just as good to draw as it is to make off the Predaplant, followed by 3 copies of Pot of Prosperity. I know you're probably eyeing this and thinking, God, I wish I could play the deck, but this card is so expensive. Extravagance is just as good, if not better. We've got 2 copies of Pot of Duality. I like it a little bit less than Prosperity because we are going for DPE lines, but still a very powerful card in the strategy, and 1 Called by the Grave to round out the spells. For traps, we're on 3 Infinite Impermanents, 3 Dinomorphia Domain. During the main phase, you can pay half your life points to fusion summon a Dinomorphia fusion monster from your extra deck, using monsters from your hand, deck, or field as material. We're playing 2 copies of Dinomorphia Alert. Pay half your life points to special summon up to 2 Dinomorphia monsters from your graveyard with a total level of 8 or less, but you can't declare an attack with them this turn, and you can't special summon for the rest of the turn except Dinomorphias. And finally, we've got 2 copies of Dinomorphia Brute. Pay half your life points to destroy a Dinomorphia monster you control and 1 card your opponent controls. All these have the same effect, which is if your life points are 2,000 or less, you can banish it from the graveyard, and the next time you would take effect damage from your opponent's card effects, you don't. You can only activate 1 of each of these traps per turn, so it pays to play as many as possible. We're then on 3 Solemns and 3 Solemns, and then 2 apiece of the Dinomorphia Sonic counter trap. This one's a little bit different. When your opponent activates a spell trap card while you control a Dinomorphia, you get to pay half your life points to negate the activation and destroy the card, then destroy a Dinomorphia you control. And unlike the others, this protects you from battle damage. The counter traps all do this, but this is the only one worth playing right now. You can banish it from the graveyard and you take no battle damage from a battle you would engage in. Finally, we're playing 2 copies of IDP, which I think is just a good card. In the extra, we're on 1 DPE triple Kentragina, 1 copy of Stealth Bergia. This card's not great, but it burns out your opponent in niche scenarios, and sometimes you just want an additional guy that isn't exactly Kentragina on your side of the field. 1 copy of Zeus, Lagia, Dolka, and a Zoo line, so we can potentially make him. We're playing Access Code Talker, Unicorn, Dark, incredibly powerful card for the strategy, and Verte Anaconda. So with that, let's jump into the games. Our first match is up against Branded, and I gotta tell you, even though our opponent isn't playing the new stuff, the hype for this deck has reached a fever pitch. I was on the Beltway the other day with my windows down, and some rando shouts at me, "Let's go Branded." He didn't even look like he played Yu-Gi-Oh! Anyway, we're going first, so this is probably fine. We're going to begin with a copy of Fossil Dig. That's going to add a Terezi to our hand. We're going to normal summon the Terezi, and then afterwards we're going to activate the effect to set a copy of the Fusion Trap. We're going to set a couple of cards, remember that we have an FD in our hand, and then go for it, setting the remainder. We'll pass back to our opponent. They draw for turn, and it's their own FD. They're going to begin with a copy of Foolish Burial. That's going to set from deck to graveyard a copy of Despian of Tragedy. They're going to go ahead and trigger its effect before normal summoning an Aluber, and I remember that this is the card you're supposed to negate, so I flip up the Solemn Strike. From here, they go for a Polymerization, and unfortunately, I think I have to Sonic here. I Sonic to negate it, and then afterwards they're able to fire off an FD of their own. We're going to fire off the copy of Domain here. We're going to make a Kentragina, which is okay, but unfortunately is slightly smaller than the DPE. So we're going to have to go for the effect to make a copy of Stealth Bergia, which turns on the triple tack. No big deal. I just now realized that their sends for FD are Mally and Denier, which is new. They'll Psycho the Malicious and then go for the DPE. We'll go for the Stealth Bergia and then Chain Infinite Impermanence, so they take 25, and then their effect is negated. They're going to set a couple of cards, and then at end step, we're going to trigger the effect of the DPE in order to pop one of our opponent's back row. We go for the effect of the DPE in graveyard, and thankfully they can't negate it. In standby, we bring back the DPE, and let's see what we can do here. We're going to go for the Celestial in grave. We find a Fossil Dig, which is unfortunate because we already have both the Diplos and the Terezi in rotation. We'll go for the Diplos, dome our opponent for 5, and then get over as much as we can. Thankfully, our Kentragina is just a little bit too big for our opponent right now at 3187 attack. We are going to go for the DPE here once the Aluber revives to hit this copy of Forbidden Droplet, and then we'll go into a Dark, trigger the effect of the Dark to bring back our opponent's DPE. God, this is really what this card was made to do. We'll pass back to our opponent, who for turn draws the Malicious. Should have gotten it out of your deck. They're going to do the effect of the Denier here because they do have to summon something back. We'll go for our own DPE as they summon a Verte Anaconda, and then we'll trigger the effect in the graveyard. That's pretty much all she wrote. They're going to go for this copy of Tragedy in grave, but it's a little too late. We draw for turn. We're going to bring back our DPE, go directly to the battle phase, and when they flip that quick play, we'll flip our Solemn. GG's, 407 life. Our second match showcases a huge weakness of this deck. It is not particularly good against Ash Blossom specifically. Our opponent is playing Drytron, and we are going first. We've opened very well. We're going to begin with a copy of Pot of Prosperity, finding off the top, nothing. Okay, let's go for the Duality instead. Off the top, I guess we'll take Sonic. It's okay. We have the Domain at least. We'll pass back to our opponent, who draws Ash for turn. We fire the Domain on the activation of the Fafnir, and yeah, that eats an Ash Blossom. From here, we're basically just a sitting duck. Thankfully, their hand isn't fantastic. That Nova is going to be able to get them a copy of Alpha, and the Gamma can send the Alpha to bring back the Alpha and make the Xyz monster. They'll trigger the effect of the Fafnir. We have to infip here because otherwise they can just do the entire Drytron combo. They'll get in for 2,000. We are still alive, but they have a Zeus, and this deck is not particularly good against quick back row wipes. We draw a Fossil Dig, which is great. If we had maybe a Brute, we could do it, but as is, our Terezi is going to eat an Infip, which is going to eat a Sonic. From here, we can set something, but our opponent still has 2 activations on the Zeus, and there's really nothing we can do about it. We'll proceed to end phase. They'll activate Zeus once. We'll fire the Alert to go down to 500 and bring back the Terezi as a comedy joke. Now, we can beat 1 attack, so we have to hope off this Pot of Prosperity they do not find another monster. Okay, and so they have found exclusively monsters off this. The copy of Diviner is probably as bad as it gets. They're going to trigger the Diviner, sending a copy of Herald, and we will concede. So it's time for game 3, and you know what that means, a best of 3 versus meta. Our opponent's playing the pile, and oh my god, I could not have constructed a better 5-card hand for this 60-card deck if you had allowed me to. Okay, well, they're going first. Good luck to us. They're going to begin with a copy of Aramesir. They're going to get a token to their side of the field, followed by a Fateful Adventure. They'll trigger the effect of the Souls in hand to summon itself, and then trigger the effect of the Fateful Adventure on field to add a copy of Dracoback to hand. Next, they're going to activate the effect of Fateful Adventure to add Wandering Griffin Rider, pitching the Dracoback, and then using Dracoback to target the token. Griffin Rider is Chainlink 2. Why is this quick? It wouldn't change anything. They'll go for Baron de Fleur afterward, triggering the effect of the Red Rose for a Rocks Rose, and triggering the effect of the Rocks Rose to get a Basil Rose Shoot to hand. From here, they can use Souls to draw a couple of cards. Wow, another hand trap. And a Crystron Hauka Fibrax has now entered the fray. They will go into a copy of Yazi and then activate the effect of Baron de Fleur to pop the Yazi and trigger the effect of the Yazi to get a Mare Mare. From here, they can do whatever they want. They're going to Mare Mare for a token. Then they're going to activate the Basil Rose Shoot to bring back one of these dragons so they can make a copy of Herald and play around Forbidden Droplet. They're going to get another token before they go into a Dagda and another token, triggering Dagda to set a copy of Scythe as well. And I bet you can all guess where this is going. That's turning into a Link Spider, into a Verte effect, sending the requisite materials for a DPE. Now, they aren't going to be able to access them on the next turn, but who cares? They'll go for the DPE, popping it and the Verte for space, and then in standby phase, we'll bring it back. They'll trigger the effect of the DPE, popping the Scythe, and I have nothing with which to negate that. All right, what are we doing with this hand? Well, the FD is off for sure. We could maybe fire off this Pot of Prosperity. We'll do that. That'll be negated by the Herald, which is great because that negates activations. That means we can fire off the second Pot of Prosperity afterwards just to run headfirst into an Ash Blossom. Oh, I needed the Baron negate there, I think. We're going to go for the Terezi. We'll activate the effect, and oh, we're not even getting the Baron negate. Wow. Okay, let's go to the next one. So it's time for game 2, and now that is more like it. That's more like it. Oh, good, 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 good. All right, let's fire off the Fossil Dig, set 5, and let the Monkey Flip flow through us. We've got the Domain. We've got the Sonic. We've got the Solemn Strike. We've got the Alert. We've got the Brute. Good luck. Our opponent's going to begin with a copy of Rite of Aramesir. This is a weird one. We probably do have to Sonic this, but it does negate activations. So if they have another way to get to an Aramesir, we are going to have to take that out as well. Next, we're going to go for a Kentragina. It goes down to 2,000. We do have to Solemn Strike this Water Enchantress of the Temple, and they will normal summon a monster with an Ignition effect. This is a rare opportunity for us. They're going to Ghost Ogre our Kentragina, but we do get the Kentragina. They're going to activate Called by targeting Kentragina, but we can dodge that with a copy of Alert and get the Diplos to our side of the field. Then finally on New Chain, activate the set copy of Brute, popping the Diplo in order to destroy our opponent's normal summoned monster. Diplo floats back into Terezi. Terezi floats back into a back row. Our opponent fires off Crossy Road and concedes. 63 life points. So it's time for that all-important game 3, and okay, now this is a hand I expect from a deck that's playing 14 Garnets. Our opponent's going to begin with a copy of Fateful Adventure, then they're going to activate Aramesir. Now they do this pretty interestingly. They're going to get a token and then trigger the effect of the Fateful in order to get a Draco back, then activate the effect of Fateful to get an Enchantress and pitch an Enchantress. This ensures with the Enchantress in hand, they have 2 Aramesir next turn, so even if we negate with the spell Trap Negator, Sonic, we are going to have to contend with the Brave Engine. No big deal. We did pull a copy of Infip for the Verte Anaconda, and the shields are down. Unfortunately, our hand is kind of poopy too. We don't want to see 3 monsters, and we definitely don't want to see 2 Diplo. We're going to send this copy of Terezi to the graveyard, then we'll go for Gilasaurus. They'll bring back the Aquamancer. We'll go to battle phase to clear the field. Then main phase 2, we're going to go into a copy of Verte Anaconda of our own. We're going to go for the Verte Anaconda, send a copy of Fusion Destiny, and we didn't draw our pieces. We'll DPE at end step to pop this copy of Fateful Adventure, and I'm feeling pretty good. Unfortunately, in the 60 card list specifically, 2 copies of Fateful Adventure is pretty much standard. They're going to go for the Aramesir here. We can't really negate it. They're going to get a token to their side of the field, and the Fateful, we're going to have to DPE here. And unfortunately, because they have kept this copy of Draco back in their hand, they're now able to activate Draco back, go sniping for our back row, and oh god, the Red Rose is killer. Maybe there was an argument to finding a scenario to fire off the IDP with the knowledge that they'll go into Yazi, and the only way I win is if they're unable to pop the Yazi, but I think they can do it with the Rose Shoot anyway. I don't need to watch this play out. You give this deck an inch and it will take a mile. So we're back with the deck, and honestly, if we won the die roll, I could have seen that going the other way. Let's do the pros and cons. First, the pros. 1, when you get really set up, not much is going to stop you. Kentragina gets out of control exceptionally fast, and not many decks can keep up with her bulk. 2, it's extremely consistent. Terezi is an unbelievable starter, and getting to search her with Fossil Dig is honestly laughable. And 3, the life points make this hilarious. Your opponent is going to see you down to like 100 after the first turn, and their eyes are going to turn into little Gaga Cowboys like 40s cartoon style, but the traps ensure it will never connect. And the cons. 1, It's not particularly good into negation boards specifically. Now, these are kind of fewer and farther between these days because most decks prefer to end on Scythelock and not a lot else, but the occasional one will ruin your day, especially with Omnis like Barone running around. 2, it can be a little bricky. We're on a lot of monsters, and drawing 3 of a kind is a death sentence. And 3, this deck is incredibly weak to Ash Blossom in particular. Without access to the fusion, you are a sitting duck, and Ash's smug little face wraps it all up. All in all, the deck's fine, but it's poised to get some new support soon that might just make it meta. See you again if it does.